I'm Lauren with IndoorGardening.com, and today we're going to talk about houseplants that flower. There are a lot of misconceptions out there that houseplants do not flower at all, or that you have to buy specific already flowering houseplants. This is not true. There are lots of plants out there that flower. There are especially plants out there that people work really hard in order to see that flower at all. Or there are plants out there that are specifically identified by their flower, and we're just going to kind of go over some of these today. First up on the list is African violets. These plants are bought specifically for their flowers. You'll end up seeing them flowering in the store, but if you're going to get the more rare ones, you're going to end up getting ones with just green foliage. They usually have fuzzy green leaves, and then it can take 6 months to a couple of years, depending on the specific variety of plant and the conditions they're in order to get them to flower. They come in pinks, whites, variegateds, purples. They're one of the very few plants out there to have a naturally blue flower as well, especially for houseplants. So it makes for a very interesting growing time as well. Next, we have Hoya, which are actually specifically identified by their blooms. It can take up to 2 years to get a Hoya to bloom, depending on the maturity and how they started out. It can be even longer depending on the specific type of plant. Hoya carnosa compacta, for example, will take years to be able to bloom, especially if their conditions are not met. Meanwhile, you have plants like the Hoya pubicalyx, which will grow and bloom probably within 6 months to a year, depending on the maturity of the cutting that you got the plant from. So they make for pretty amazing plants. They generally come in little snowball forms with little teeny tiny star-shaped flowers. Sometimes the middle can look very gelatinous or very fuzzy, depending on the specific type of Hoya. There's also Hoya multiflora, which is a shooting star Hoya, and they look like they have little teeny tiny trumpets with little stars coming out of them. Very cool Hoya. But because Hoya can change the shape of their leaves and their growth patterns depending on the conditions they're grown in, Hoya are very difficult to identify, and a lot of Hoya can get mixed up, and you can think that you have one Hoya when you actually have another, and you won't be able to tell until after they bloom. Next, we have spider plants. Spider plants are not very well known as far as their blooms. They have these little teeny tiny white lily-like blooms, and they grow along the stem along with the plantlets. They can also self-pollinate by falling on each other. It's really cool to see. You can also hand pollinate these little flowers, and they will produce seed pods, so you can have spider plants growing from seeds as well as having the little plantlets. It's a very incredible plant. Very unique to see. It does happen, but they only last for a short period of time, less than 24 hours usually, so definitely something to keep an eye out for if you happen to see your spider plant putting out their little stems for the plantlets. It is important to note that the plantlets do not come from the flowers. The plantlets are in addition to the flowers, so you'll get both of those coming from the stems as well. Next, we have orchids, which are very well known for their flowers as well. A lot of the times, Phalaenopsis orchids are the ones you're going to find in the grocery store. People breed them specifically for their blooms. They can come in a variety of different colors, usually pinks, oranges, whites. There's some creams out there as well. Blue is not a natural orchid color, so if you do end up getting one that's a blue or a purple as a Phalaenopsis orchid, they were actually dyed, and when they rebloom in 2 years, they're not going to come out that same color that you originally had. So make sure you're researching whatever orchid that you get, so that way you're getting the bloom that you want, and you're not waiting 2 years with just green foliage for this bloom to come, and then it's not the color that you want. Maranta are very similar in bloom shape to orchids. They do have kind of a hood. They are difficult to pollinate. They are very beautiful. They also come in multicolors where the center is going to be one color and then it will expand. Maranta are usually purple inside, and then they kind of expand to be a lighter white or a paler purple on the outer edges. They also have pink varieties as well. It just depends on the specific Maranta that you have. They're very beautiful foliage, but they will bloom in the summertime and in the springtime when it gets really warm and really humid. Another one that creates tiny little blooms is a Tradescantia. You'll see them blooming pretty much all year round, off and on, provided they get enough light. So definitely make sure you're giving your Tradescantia as much light as possible so you can see those little blooms. For the most part, like the Maranta, they're pink and purple, but they're a lot more vibrant and they're a lot more in your face. They stand out a lot more depending on the specific type of Tradescantia that you have. But they are very tiny and very unassuming. They last a lot longer, up to 3 days, depending on the specific type of Tradescantia you have. So, pretty incredible plant. We also wanted to talk about Monstera. It's a little known fact that they actually bloom. They'll create these big, white, beautiful blooms. They need to be hand pollinated. They don't bloom very often. It can take a couple years to get them to bloom, but when they do bloom, they actually produce a fruit, which is really incredible. This fruit is edible when it is fully harvested, which is very interesting because Monstera themselves are a toxic plant that produces an edible fruit. Very, very cool. And one of the reasons that Monstera was ever first harvested and brought over in order to be cultivated was for this fruit in particular. It was going to be grown as a harvest crop like corn is nowadays, and then they kind of expanded it from there and realized that it takes a little bit too long for the fruit to produce like that. It has to be hand pollinated, and people seem to like the foliage a lot more. But for us houseplant collectors, it's definitely a bonus thing and definitely something that's really cool to see. It also shows that you have a mature Monstera that is very, very happy in your care. So it's kind of like a gold star or a cookie at the end of plant growing, you know? So very, very cool. Definitely worth the time and effort. And there is a lot of pollen from this Monstera flower if you happen to get one. There's definitely a lot more houseplants out there that flower, but we can't fit them all on the list today. Let us know down below if you want another one. We can definitely do another one of these for you if you enjoyed it. Be sure to check out indoorgardening.com. There's lots more information over there, and we're always happy to help. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!